September 28, 1928. A date that may not ring a bell right away, but made a life-saving difference for millions upon millions around the globe. A day when a casual observation turned into a medical wonder. Today, on a day like this, the day penicillin was discovered. Now, to truly appreciate the significance of this momentous discovery, we need to take a step back and immerse ourselves into the late 1920s. Picture it, the world was just beginning to recover from the scars of World War I. The glitzy age of jazz was painting towns red in America, while across the pond in Britain, folks were still feeling the economic hardships post-war. Amidst these turbulent times, tucked away in a corner of St. Mary's Hospital in London was the inoculation department, where our protagonist, Alexander Fleming, spent his days sifting through petri dishes. Fleming wasn't your ordinary bacteriologist. He was a veteran of World War I, having witnessed firsthand the horrors of untreatable infections on the battlefield. The evolution of weaponry had advanced faster than the development of medicine, and soldiers didn't just die from their wounds, but from the infections that followed. Fast forward to a more peaceful world post-war, Fleming continued his quest to find something that could effectively kill off bacteria. Antibiotics were not yet a thing. Doctors would have to combat bacterial infections with either antiseptics, which killed not just bacteria, but healthy cells as well, or with vaccines made from the same strain of bacteria that caused the disease. This made for a risky gamble, as it often came down to what would win: your body's natural defenses, or the malicious bacteria. Now imagine you're Sir Alexander Fleming during this time. You've set yourself on an almost impossible mission, and you're surrounded by petri dishes teeming with harmful bacteria, inspecting them with squinted eyes, day in and day out. Not quite as glamorous as those jazz parties in America now, is it? But it's sometimes in these mundane routines that miracles tend to find us. While penicillin may seem like an overnight sensation, just like any good story, its journey was filled with ups and downs. So there we were, on September 3rd, 1928. Fleming had returned from a 2-week holiday and did what any of us would do once we're back: catch up on a little housekeeping. Instead of unread emails, he found a stack of petri dishes waiting to be cleaned. It was during this tidy-up that he noticed one dish filled with Staphylococcus bacteria, not quite like the rest. In one portion of this dish, an odd mold was growing, almost like a patch of forgotten food left in the fridge. But what really intrigued Fleming was the clear halo surrounding this mold, an area where no Staphylococcus bacteria seemed to survive. A passage in his notes reads, and I quote, "That's funny. This funny discovery sparked curiosity in Fleming's scientific heart. The mystery of that mold in the clear halo was too enticing not to be explored. And so, he delved deeper, investigating this mold that seemed to have superpowers against bacteria that no other discovered compound did." Now, to give you an idea, our unsung hero here isn't like the ordinary greenish mold you'd find on expired bread. This was a particular type of mold known as Penicillium notatum, a name that would soon echo through the annals of medical history. Fleming, with his meticulous nature, decided to grow the mold by itself. He wanted to investigate its matter, its juices per se. Remember, at the time, bacteria were considered invincible opponents. No fair match had been found until this point. After careful cultivation and extraction, a task that required patience and precision, our hero finally obtained what we now recognize as penicillin. He decided to test this new component on various other harmful bacteria like Streptococcus, Meningococcus, and Diphtheria bacillus. And guess what? This mauve wonder seemed to decimate them all. But it wasn't all victory and pats on the back yet. Fleming faced his fair share of hurdles and moments of self-doubt. The road to understanding penicillin was a rugged one. He found it challenging to stabilize and produce in large quantities. There's also the fact that it appeared useless against viruses and was susceptible to gastric juices, hence couldn't be administered orally. Despite the initial obstacles, Fleming released his initial findings in June 1929 in the British Journal of Experimental Pathology. But sadly, as is often the case with groundbreaking discoveries ahead of their time, his study didn't immediately grab headlines or recognition. So, why does September 28th matter then? Well, this is where the story of penicillin gets a bit more interesting. It's the day Fleming accidentally stumbled upon the petri dish that harbored the powerful mold. It's like that cog in the wheel that seemed insignificant at first glance, but, in reality, proved to be essential to launch this sea change in medical science. It was on September 28th when he fully noticed the bacteria-killing powers of the mold and decided to delve deeper and investigate further, validating his observations through rigorous scientific methods. This is the date when history was redefined in Fleming's laboratory, the date when human battle against bacterial infections was forever altered. The discovery of penicillin was not just a scientific achievement. It forged a path for countless medical advancements and saved innumerable lives, altering the course of human health forever. It's hard to imagine now, but before penicillin, even a simple scratch could turn fatal if bacterial infection set in. The power that these small, unseen enemies held over us was a true horror of the pre-antibiotic age. But post-1928, the tables turned. Despite the initial lukewarm reaction to Fleming's study in 1929, penicillin's potential could not be hidden for long. In fact, the initial challenges faced by Fleming to stabilize and produce penicillin in large numbers ironically led to another significant breakthrough. A decade later, in 1939, two scientists, Howard Florey and Ernst Boris Chain, took the mantle from Fleming's work. They devoted their time and resources at the Sir William Dunn School of Pathology at the University of Oxford to develop a method to mass-produce penicillin. Their work led to the creation of a stable, potent form of the drug, just in time for World War II. The timing couldn't have been more appropriate. During World War II, infections from wounds were one of the highest contributors to troop fatalities. A solution was desperately needed, and penicillin proved to be the knight in shining armor. The mold that started its journey softly in Fleming's untidy corner of St. Mary's Hospital was now being produced en masse. As the war progressed, so did the production of penicillin, becoming an essential tool in the medical arsenal for wounded soldiers. Many historians agree that without penicillin, the Allies would have lost more lives and might have struggled even more against the Axis forces. The consequences extended far beyond the war itself. After World War II, penicillin became commercially available for civilians and started its slow yet sure revolution of global healthcare. Suddenly, humanity had an upper hand in our age-old fight against bacterial infections. It became a wonder drug that made grueling surgeries possible, safe childbirth a norm, and turned once deadly illnesses into mere inconveniences. The use of antibiotics also paved the way to better manage diseases that weaken immune systems, like cancer, allowing for more effective treatments. Phrases like post-antibiotic era and age of antibiotics came into existence thanks to this groundbreaking innovation. Bacterial infections, which were once menacing threats to human life, could now be combated more effectively. Is everything bright and shiny due to penicillin? Not really. Let's talk about antibiotic resistance, but that's a story for another day, and another on a day like this episode. The takeaway here is this: penicillin fundamentally reshaped our world. It revolutionized medicine, saved countless lives, and continues doing so even over 90 years later. It all started on an unassuming day when a curious scientist noticed something was odd with his bacterial culture dishes. Thus, September 28, 1928 marks the inception of a new era in fighting infectious diseases, granting humans one of the most effective tools in our medical toolkit. A time when we began to wrest control from microscopic organisms that had been dictating the terms humans lived and died by for much of our history. So that brings us to the end of our journey through time for today. We ventured back to 1928 and met an unassuming man with a persistent curiosity. We discovered how Sir Alexander Fleming's routine day turned into a life-changing breakthrough when he noticed a mold exhibiting unusual traits. We've tracked how this discovery unleashed a wave of changes in the medical world, touched upon the trials faced before penicillin could be mass-produced, and touched on the immense impact it had during World War II. We've also skimmed over the post-war transformation of healthcare and how the word antibiotics became a household term, a synonym for fighting infections, saving lives, and quite literally changing the game for humanity. It's crucial that we remember these milestones in our human journey. Unraveling our past, understanding the countless trials and achievements of those who came before us, give us not just wisdom, but a profound appreciation for our present. Seeing how far we've come also gives us hope and inspiration for the future. It's like standing on the shoulders of giants. Only by understanding where we've been can we fully comprehend where we stand now. History has a lesson or two for every one of us. And speaking of lessons, what has fascinated you most about today's story? Did you know about Fleming's "That's Funny" moment in 1928? Or is there something more recent that's caught your eye? Any special historical events that stirred your curiosity? Before we wrap up for today, if you've enjoyed this journey back in time with us, please do hit that like button. Your likes, shares, and subscriptions motivate us to dig deeper and bring more slices of history to you. Join us in our journey through time by hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications. Thank you for your time today. As always, it was a pleasure sharing this day's historic significance with you. Stay tuned to our next episode, where we'll unravel another important event that happened on a day like this.